What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Unapologetically Black Bear, where we talk about surviving the stigma, standards, and systems. Once again, my name is Dwayne Pate. I'm one half of the host here. Shout out to my co-host, brother EJ Stewart, and shout out to J Pope and Associates for being a consistent supporter and sponsor, and just providing that positive energy that we need to continue to celebrate African American men. Once again, this podcast is meant to celebrate African American men, their definition of success, and how they've overcome the standards, stigmas, and the systems of society. Make sure you, before you do anything, make sure you like, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're up to 43 subscribers. So by the time you see this, we should be up to our 50. So let's make sure we continue to push that and continue to push this message of positivity, because we on a roll. We're going to continue to grow this thing. But we have a great guest on today. I'm going to turn it over to Brother Dana Lewis. He's going to introduce himself. You see his credentials in his name, but he's going to tell us a little bit about himself and his story. All right, Dana, it's on you.
Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Dana Lewis. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and CEO of an urban group mental health practice here in Baltimore called Whole Life Center. I'm excited to be on here with you guys on this platform, and I'm ready to dive into some transparent conversation. Oh, and also I'm a husband, a father, and everything else in between. Just wanted to add that in there.
Absolutely. So Dana, let's talk about where you're from. Where'd you get your start at? Let's dig in a little bit of that.
Okay. Well, I got my start east side of Baltimore, man. That's where I was raised. Single mom household. You know what I mean? That's where I got my start initially. But as far as like social work is concerned, I got my start at Baltimore City Department of Social Services. That's where I met my man Emilio. That's where we met. I started doing social work there, in foster care, starting there, and worked my way up through the ranks to be where I'm at now as a private practitioner, man. But how I got into social work though was by doing counseling for Johns Hopkins when I was in high school. I went to Dunbar, and my first job ever was counseling young kids, man, middle school kids, and being able to pour into them and speak life into them. And after going through that experience, man, it was like, man, I wanna do this more often, where I'm like sharing advice and being able to hear people's stories. So at the time, I was like, how can I get into this profession of social work? So my father at the time, a licensed social worker, I asked him like, hey, I want to get into more of helping people and helping people weave through their stories at the time. And I was like, is social work that thing? And he put me on, and he was like, yeah, there's a lot of avenues where you can do that, and particularly a therapist. But he was like, you got to start from being a case manager and work your way up. So I was like, hey, sign me up. I'm ready to go. So that's just a little bit about my start in the field of, social work.
Got you. So growing up in East Baltimore, what were some of the things that you had to face, just kind of as an African American man in that environment? Me being a product of East Baltimore myself, and knowing particular areas, can be a little difficult to grow up in. So tell us a little bit about that, and tell us about you mentioned your dad being in social work, kind of help connect that piece, and how he played a major part in your life growing up.
Got you. So growing up in East Baltimore, man, it was different, man, especially coming from a household where, my mom, she didn't really want me in the streets like that. So I was kind of like closed in a bit, but nonetheless, man, she taught me some great values and some things like when I do go outside of the home. And one thing that I must say, like growing up in East Baltimore, like being different, man, like sometimes I would get chastised for that. Like, yo, you're not acting like the guys over here. And sometimes I would feel bad, but then I had to understand that being different was cool. Being different kept me out of trouble. Being different helped me to see the world from a different view. And, that's some of the things I had to deal with, being different from those in my community at the time, and really trying to navigate that to find my identity, especially growing up as a young man in East Baltimore. Very impressionable things be going on out there. I could have got it for a lot of stuff, drug dealing, the girls, things like that. But my mother was like, you got to represent the name right when you leave this household, and I ain't bailing you out of jail. So you stuck there. So when she told me that, I was just like, all right, let me keep my head on the swivel, let me stay focused. My job at the time was school. She was like, your job is school. You don't have to worry about working. I got you covered, but focus on school. That's your job. Get your education, because he was big on that and making sure that I stayed out of trouble. And as far as my dad is concerned, man, like just seeing him navigate through social work and seeing how he managed that, I was like, wow, that's something that I want to do. Being able to help people, being able to serve, and he would always take me on different office meetings that he would go to, so I could kind of just sit in and hear what was going on when he was working for different outpatient mental health clinics. He would allow me to sit in on some of these conversations. I was like, wow, this is cool. I want to do that. I want to serve in that capacity. So he definitely showed me the ropes, and he definitely was able to get me in positions where I could expand my career. So I appreciate him for that.
Awesome.
Yeah, and you talked about where you started, and I remember those days and that time, and permanency in a major city, especially East Coast city, isn't an easy place to start. And many people get there and they burn out and they fade away and they just walk away from this thing completely. But you seemingly had a vision. Being a male and probably one of, I mean, shoot, I was one of the only ones before you got there. So being probably only one or two of a handful at that time, how were you able to maintain your agency and stick to this plan that you set forth to being where you are now?
That's a good question. Basically, what I did was I kept my eyes on the prize. Like I knew like it was a stepping stone. I knew it wasn't
Mm,
like my final destination. But even though I was there, I was like, how much can I get out of this situation that I can take with me moving forward? And one thing that I can say is that even though it was a tough environment to work in, working, in pregnancy at the time, and like you were saying, like all the factors and dynamics that come with the city. One thing that I can say is that it taught me how to be an ultimate social worker. You know what I mean? It taught me how to, navigate through crisis. It taught me how to, navigate through certain dynamics when it comes to clients. So pretty much how I kept my groundedness during that time was just looking at it like as a means of learning. Even though it was stressful at the time, I was like, how can I learn? What things can I take from this situation and apply to where I am now? Because my goal, even when I was there, was to always own my own practice, own my own private practice at the time. So I was just learning the ropes, and everybody told me then was like, this is where you gotta start. This is the stepping stone, but get everything you can get out of the situation so that it can grow you and be, the social worker at the time.
Outside of your dad, did you encounter any other mentors along the way? Because I remember there, just, and this is another fold of this, but being the only men, especially in that agency at that time,
Mhm.
we were looked at in so many crazy ways.
Mhm.
So let me
Absolutely.
start with my second point. What were some of the stigmas and standards that you had to get past or navigate through in that space? And then were there any mentors or guides outside of your father at that time?
Yeah. So my mentor, I actually met when I was doing like part-time therapy outside of DSS. He was my clinical supervisor. We still cool today. He was my mentor, and he really was like teaching me about how to navigate mental health overall, because his ideology on mental health is like, you really got to look at it from a macro, micro, and meso perspective. Like you got to look at the whole picture, man, when you serving clients. And he really instilled that in me, and he really was just teaching me the ropes and just put me on to different types of literature to help expand my skill set. So that was a mentor outside of DSS and outside of my dad that really, poured into me and still to this day pour into me. And as far as like the stigmas that come with, being a black male social worker, like, oh man, I could think of so many, but a couple that comes to mind is like being a black male social worker, you got to come across as all macho and hard, and things like that. And I'm like, I don't have to come across like that in the workspace to get my point across and show my presence as a Black male social worker. So that was like one of the stigmas that I really was like inheriting, like really had to navigate through. Like, I can be me, I can be myself, and still be able to connect with, the clients I was working with then and now. I don't have to be nobody else. I can be me. I can be comfortable in who I am and in my identity as Dana first and foremost, and serve from that space. So that was like one of the main stigmas that I personally had to weave through and, get comfortable in navigating that.
No, that's dope, and I want to commend this brother because being the minority among hundreds of women, this man found his soulmate.
Yes.
I was there for I witnessed
You
the
witness.
stages, and so that's a beautiful thing because ever since I met you, you maintain being that calm, smooth dude, who was profound in his faith and just saying, I remember you just always shaking your head like, I'm just, doing your thing, so I definitely want to give you your flowers, man, because, outside of that stigma, some of our peers and you get mixed up into, oh well, he got to be a player or something. It's so many different avenues that we get pulled into being that minority, and you came out in one of the most beautiful ways possible. So definitely shout out to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that was a magical time, man. I never thought I would meet my wife, the social services. I never thought that, but I really appreciate that, man, because that was like a stigma, another stigma. Man, all these women, you got to pick of the litter, you can go all around. But I was just like, I ain't trying to get caught up. I'm here to work. I'm here to, serve the client. And if I meet somebody, cool. If not, cool. But I ain't trying to get in all that drama because I'm on a mission. I'm a man on a mission. And when you're a man on mission, your wife will come. So I was just staying focused, and she came to me, and it happened.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Okay.
Came to you, huh? I remember a little different, but
Yeah,
shout out to the Lewis clan.
it's all different perspectives. You know what I'm saying?
It's definitely a difference. Everybody has a story. It's your story, their story, and the truth. But I mean, let's stay right there as far as us being all African American men and being clinicians and being in the mental health field. What are some additional struggles that you have? I mean, not just at the Department of Social Services, but you have kind of moving forward from that moment and just kind of making sure that you are the best representation of yourself.
Absolutely. So, like, some of the things, man, like I encounter, just being a Black male clinician is, and this is real, I'm just gonna be transparent with you guys, is sometimes it's like we looked at as the superhero. Like, I gotta come in and save the day. Now, not saying, but at times it's like I can't do that all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like the superhero, like, you go to a Black male clinician, he'll save the day. And I understand that, we are unicorns and we are major influences in our community, especially in this mental health field. But at the same time, it's like that weight of feeling like I have to be a superhero for every client sometimes. I had to really understand that I can't be that, but I can provide the best type of mental health services that I can. And anything that's outside of my scope, I'm gonna go study it. But I can't put that superhero cape on my back all the time for every client. So that was like something that I had to personally weave through because that was eating at me. Like, I was like, man, like everybody just reaching out, like, yo, you a Black man social worker? Can you work with my son at the time? I was working teenagers. Can you work with my son? Can you work with even my daughter? Like, she needs a role model, and I think that you can help her. And I'm like, oh man, this pressure, you know. And sometimes, I would be like, man, like, can I even do this? Can I even serve this client in the way that they are kind of putting me on this pedestal of being a superhero? I had to actually weed through that and actually understand, like, I can't necessarily be that, but I can be the best Dana and the best black male clinician that I can be in that moment. So
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think recently I started to kind of feel that type of pressure. Where working for the agency that I work for, it's like, I don't mind, like I don't mind being that person, but it's like, how much can I do to save everybody that they keep sending my way? And it's like, you have to learn that. I mean, it goes back to just setting boundaries at the end of the day. It just kind of setting those boundaries, like, all right, I want to do it, but can I really do it? Can I really do it and be effective at being myself, a husband, a father, and still, making sure I get what I need? And I think that's a very key lesson, and it's something that we just got to keep in mind as black male therapists or clinicians, to make sure that we do practice that balance, and that we are, even though we are unicorns, we can't be everybody's unicorn. And we got to work within our frame of reference, and I would say work smarter and not harder. Just kind of learning to depend on others, and like building your network and starting to develop that. So I can appreciate you for sharing that, because that's definitely something that I realized over the last couple of years that I've been doing therapy. That, as much as I want to save everybody, I can't. As much as I want to be there, I really can't. So I just got to do the best that I can to being who I am and thrive in that role. So yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I'm glad what you said too about building that network. So now I understand, like, all right, I gotta have different networks of clinicians, black male clinicians. So you guys, I'm always bringing up you guys, and then I have another brother that I work closely with that do therapy as well. So I just refer out if I can't take on the clients at the time. So yeah, that network is everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you both talked about being married, and all of us being family men. How do you find that balance in running the business, and then you're dealing with mental health, so you're not dealing with cars. It's not like, I tell people, we're not accountants to where everything is the same, numbers are just this way. You're taking on other people's stuff on top of what you have. How do you balance that mental balance of being all of these things?
Yeah, that's a good question. Pretty much, man, like what I started doing, especially over the pandemic, was like what Dwayne was saying, like setting those boundaries, man. So like on Saturdays, that's just family day. I'm not doing no type of business. I'm not answering no emails. I'm not answering nothing that's dealing with the business per se. That's strictly for family day. Saturdays, that's it. Now during the week, like once I'm off of work, I see my last client in the evening, I put the phone on do not disturb. And it's a ground rule in our household that once you get off of work, once I get off of work, we're not talking about business. We're talking about, catching it up for the day, getting in with our son. So that's something that we had to learn, because when you're running a business, it's on most of the time. It's something that you could be doing at any moment for your business. You know what I mean? And me and my wife, we really had to have a discussion, like, it was bleeding into our household. So we have to really say and really stick to the boundary. Like, after you get off of work, we're not talking about business. We're talking about family. We catching up with one another. And as far as like my self-care, man, that's what I was hearing as you was asking me that question. It is a lot that we take on as clinicians, man. We carrying all of the client's story and different dynamics that they got going on in their life, and it can wear on you. So I had to be very proactive about my self-care, because again, prior to the pandemic, I was doing in-homes. I was moving here, there, and sometimes I would forget. But like during this pandemic time and being able to kind of sit and kind of be virtual, I was like really able to think about like a self-care plan. And usually like my self-care plan, after I get off, like I said, I connect with the family. But then after I connect with the family, I decompress. I watch something fun to get my mind off of things. I'm reading an interesting book, something that can bring me knowledge that can help ease my mind. I'm doing different things to kind of recalibrate myself before I pack it in for the night, man. So that's something that I really had to really be vigorous on and proactive about, is my self-care as well. So those are just some of the things that I do for self-care and boundaries. For that.
Yeah, glad you touched on that, man. And again, salute to you guys for surviving, and thriving, through this pandemic, something that none of us have experienced in our lifetime, nor our parents or their parents. We talking about something that hasn't happened in the modern century. And so that's got to be crazy, man. And I mean, I'll be honest with y'all, man. I mean, I've had my MSW and doing this thing since 2010, and I never wanted to be a clinician. I never liked the clinical part of it. So it's always amazing to me to talk to you guys and knowing your passion for it and just understanding that's a whole nother level of brain think, So I just always respect y'all because the full time I have, I'm always dealing with that. And then to have that part time. So I couldn't imagine, people like, why did you never, I could never imagine starting my own practice. And I mean, how did you guys, what was the conversation like when y'all sat down and bravely was like, let's do this? How did that go?
Yeah. So pretty much, when we were dating, right? Me and my wife, we were dating at the time, and we always talked about having like a dream center here in Baltimore that provided a multitude of services. So therapy, health and wellness, like classes, parenting classes, the whole nine, right? So we were always talking about that, always in conversations about having something like that here. So kind of fast forward to 2020, we was like, you know what? Let's really execute on this. Let's create Whole Life Center, a place where people our age, 21 through like 45, can receive quality services and really experience generational healing and break these generational cycles, right? Plus, on top of that, our experiences of going through different agencies and we saw how clients were being treated. We was like, yo, we really need to create something where we can bring our ideology around mental health to life. So that's where Whole Life Center was birthed. And we was like, you know what? No better time than now. We took a leap of faith. 2020, you already know, the height of the pandemic. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if we was going to get clients or not, but we were committed to the vision about creating a place where Black and brown people can just come in, break these cycles, feel loved on, feel accepted in a space where they don't have to code switch. They can be them and really move in being cycle breakers. Because that's the thing. It's like when we work with quote unquote clients, we don't call them clients, we call them cycle breakers because we're here to provide that support so they can break generational cycles and move into generational healing. So it's always been in the talks, but we saw the pandemic, we saw where we was needed in the world, not just here in Baltimore, but in the world. And we was like, yo, let's step out on faith. Let's open up Whole Life Center. And we've been covered and we've been blessed since then and being able to, provide therapy services for our people.
Awesome. So opening it up during the pandemic, can you kind of give us a little a synopsis of that experience? I know you can't really sum it up in a 30 or 40 minute interview, but kind of give us a synopsis of that experience and and the pivotal lessons that you learned in getting to where you are now.
Yeah. So opening up a practice in the pandemic, oh my gosh, like I said earlier, we didn't know like if we were gonna get clients. We were just not sure. But when we opened up them doors, the clients started like flooding in. And at the time, it was just me and my wife as the therapist. So we were like, overbooked, like, because at the time we felt like, oh my gosh, like we really need to service the people that's coming in. So our caseloads were overbooked, and there was a lot of stress, a lot of strain. And then at the time, still having to navigate, being a new business owner at the time, so navigating, figuring out different type of systems at the time, what things we need, what things we don't need, what things can we do to get better, how do we go about hiring, new clinicians. So that was just some of the things that was going on at the time when we opened up Whole Life Center during the pandemic. It was fast paced too. We wasn't expecting the pace to be that fast. So it kind of caught us off guard, but I would say about 6 to 8 months during that time, we was able to get some footing. Still kind of fast paced now, but now we're able to be more grounded and navigating the ebbs and flows, of the business. And we're just grateful now that we got a team of clinicians now that can help us in serving our people that's coming through the door. So yeah, man, just a lot of lessons learned during that time about just navigating pressure, navigating influx, things like that, on top of understanding that this is a pivotal time, being in the pandemic and being in the crux of it, and being able just to provide people with support at the time, and understanding that we do have influence, and managing that influence at the time as therapists was some of the lessons that we learned during that time.
Definitely awesome.
Yeah.
Before we cut out or anything like that, two things. Firstly, what is the vision? What do you envision Whole Life Center going forward? And tell the people how they can reach out to you guys. Some of the things that you offer and things like that.
Yeah. So pretty much, man, what I'm envisioning Whole Life Center to be is the premier urban mental health group practice here in Baltimore. I'm envisioning, just again, like I said earlier, people from 21 to 45, African American, to be able to really, really, really experience healing to a whole new level. A level that they never would have imagined that they could do. And for us to be in that position to do that, and to also provide like a multitude of other services as well. So like events where healing takes place outside of the therapy room, because it's so much you can do outside of the therapy room. So being able to host healing events where people can experience healing on a whole nother level, provide educational courses that go around the city to different communities who might not have access to mental health service, or may not have, good access to get around and things like that, providing those type of services in different communities here in Baltimore. And just to be a media company as well. So getting into podcasting, things like that, being able to share mental health on a bigger scale through media as well, so that people not just here in Baltimore can heal, but people across the states can heal. So that's where, Whole Life Center that I see envisioning, that's what I see for us as an agency, moving forward.
And tell the people they can find y'all.
Yeah, man. We can be found at www.wholelifecenterservices.org. You can catch us on Instagram at Whole Life Baltimore. You can follow me on my Instagram, urban_counselor. So those are all the platforms where you can find us at. Tap in with us. We're here to serve you, and we here.
Awesome, man. Thank you for definitely sharing that information. We like to I got two questions, and we're going to kind of close on this. How would you define success? And then the second part, it's not like a question, but more like a statement. Like, if somebody's listening right now, how would you, and they're kind of on the fence about doing counseling or therapy, like what are some words that you can say to them to kind of encourage them in that process? So it's like two-part. What's your definition of success? And then how would you encourage somebody? And we can kind of close right there.
Absolutely. So my definition of success is being one with yourself, knowing your identity. Because once you know your identity, pretty much the world is yours. And you move in purpose. You move much more clear when you know who you are. So that's my definition of success. Knowing who you are, knowing who you are called to be, and moving in that purpose. That's my definition of success. And as far as someone that, may be on the fence about mental health, especially if they are a Black male and they might be on the fence about mental health, I would say, you know what? Your presence is needed. Your impact in this space is needed. There's people out there that need you, brother, to come and serve in this field, and trust and believe, like, you can make a change with just your presence and your skill set. You can make a change in this field. So come in, serve alongside us brothers here, and let's impact Baltimore, and let's impact the world, man, with our presence as Black male social workers. So come on in, come on, join the party.
I needed that.
Oh, come on, join the party, man.
I'm tired, bro. I'm tired.
I'll give you a Red Bull, man. Come on.
Well, they said it gives you wings. It gives you wings.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, man, once again, thank you for, taking time out of your schedule. Just kind of hop on, just kind of share a little bit about your story. Definitely enjoyed it. Thank you for, just kind of being transparent with us and just, allowing us to see a little glimpse of Dana Lewis and, how you became who you are today. And just the different levels to it, the different levels that you have to yourself as well as to your business that you are visioning for, not only for us, but for the culture, for the community. So definitely thank you for that.
Yeah, and definitely congratulations, man. And, congratulations to just, being able to witness the work of art that has become, it's surreal, you know what I mean? And like I always say, when we interview someone, I always take something that hits to the heart and, your focus and your drive. That was really paramount for me. And so, it's just dope to see how it all started and see where it is. And, nothing but continuing on and keep rocking, man, for sure.
Thank you, bro. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. So once again, we want to thank you all for joining us for another episode of Unapologetically Black Male, where we talk about surviving the stigma, standards, and systems. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share this information. And make sure if you're interested and connected with Dana Lewis and learning more about the Whole Life Center LLC, make sure that you click the links below. All the information, you can follow him on Instagram, follow him on social media. But let's make sure that we continue to promote this company and promote the brand and continue to help spread this message of positivity as well as this podcast. So once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good one.